Every day at 5:30 in the morning at Tokyo's Toyosu Fish Market, the largest fish market in the world, a bell rings and immediately controlled chaos erupts. Buyers from Japan's most prestigious sushi restaurants kneel over hundreds of bluefin tuna laid out on the floor, each weighing over 200 kilograms. They press their fingers into the flesh to examine cut cross sections with the pen torches, checking fat content, color and texture. Then, using a centuries-old system of hand signal called Tayari, the bidding begins. In January 2026, the top tuna sold at that auction sold for 510 million yen, roughly $3.2 million for a single fish. But here is what most people don't know. That fish or one like that may be on a plate in Singapore or in Bangkok within 48 hours. In today's episode of Logistically Speaking, we will go behind the scene to uncover how your sushi goes from the fishing board to your chopsticks. Before we talk about how the fish travel, we need to understand why Japan specifically has built a supply chain that no other country has come close to replicating. It starts with the culture. The average Japanese person consumes approximately 23 kilograms of seafood per year. Freshness is not a preference, it is a philosophical requirement. The Japanese concept of shun, that is eating something at the precise peak of its seasonal quality, means that even one extra day in transit is not a logistical inconvenience. It is a culinary failure. This cultural obsession drove technological investment. Japan is using the latest technological developments to take its refrigerator logistics to a new level. That is, IoT-enabled sensors and internet-based solutions to enable precise real-time monitoring and control of temperatures, while intelligent robots assist with warehouse processors and loading vehicles. The result is a system that operates at a level of precision most countries reserve for pharmaceutical supply chains. Japan's food logistic market is estimated at nearly $50 billion in 2025 and is expected to reach $60 billion by 2030. Seafood and protein categories alone account for nearly a third of that volume. This is an industrial scale operation, and the sushi restaurant in your city is just the final delivery point. The clock starts the moment the fish leave the water. For premium species like bluefin tuna, yellowtail, sea urchins, live scallops, the handling in the first 30 minutes of catch determines the quality of every meal served weeks later, thousands of kilometers away. Japan's fishing industry has perfected what is called 𝐎𝐜𝐴𝐽, a precise method of immediately spiking the brain of a live fish to prevent stress, which releases cortisol and lactic acid that degrade meat quality. The grading process for tuna is meticulous, with experts examining factors like fat content and color and texture to determine the quality. A fish that dies in pain on the deck is worth a fraction of one that has dispatched correctly. From the vessel, premium fish are immediately packed in ice, not frozen, and transported in refrigerated truck to the nearest fish market or aggregation port. Japan's key fishing prefectures each have their own specialities. Omori's Oma bluefin tuna is considered among the finest in the world. Hokkaido scallops and sea urchins are globally prized. Nagasaki is a center for yellowtail and sea bream. No other market in the world handles as much tuna each day as Toyosu. And about $20 million worth of seafood and other produce is traded there on an average day across hundreds of species, from sea urchin to caviar to baby sardines. The temperature science is where the logistics get genuinely fascinating and where most people's intuition is wrong. The biggest misconception about Japanese sushi grade fish is that fresh means never frozen. That is only half true. For fish traveling to a restaurant in Singapore or Bangkok by air, fresh and chilled at around 0 degrees Celsius is the gold standard. Air freight for fresh seafood always require a temperature between 0 to 5 degrees Celsius during transit, and fresh seafood products are packed in lightweight styrofoam boxes with a gel ice pack to retain cold chain integrity. gel pack, and no dry ice which can alter taste and texture are placed above and below the fish in sealed 20-kilogram boxes. But for long-haul premium tuna, that's particularly the world's finest bluefin, the answer is something far more extraordinary, a technology called super freezing. Specialist logistic companies have created super freezer containers capable of carrying sashimi grade tuna at temperatures of -40 to -60 degrees Celsius. At these temperatures, cellular structure is preserved so completely that the fish, when thawed by a trained chef using a precise water temperature method, is indistinguishable from truly fresh. In July 2025, Shizuoka Cold Storage, Miyakawa Manufacturing, and Chubu Electrical Mirai launched a demand response project using -60 degrees Celsius tuna warehouses for grid balancing, showing these facilities have become significant enough infrastructure that they are now being integrated into Japan's national electricity management system. Why does this distinction matter? Because the high-value fresh fish market demand fish at a maximum of 8 to 9 days from catch. That 8 to 9 days window is the outer boundary for a chilled, unfrozen fish. For everything beyond that distance, London, New York, or Dubai, super freezing is not a compromise. It is the only way to maintain sashimi grade quality. The logistic operation that makes global sushi possible is more orchestrated than most people imagine. Yamato Transport, Japan's largest parcel delivery company, operate what it called International Cool TAQ Bin, the world's first integrated international network for small parcel refrigerated shipping, delivering perishable food to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Thailand as fast as the next day. The backbone of the system is the Okinawa International Logistic Hub, leveraging ANA's air freight network with dedicated refrigerated staging facilities. For restaurant scale shipment, the typical cadence for premium Japanese sushi restaurants in Southeast Asia is deliveries every 2 to 3 days. This is not because daily flights don't exist, they do. It is because the economies of consolidation, that is air freight for fresh seafood, is on an average more than 50% more expensive per kilogram than sea freight. Aggregating orders across multiple restaurants and condensing into 3-day consolidated air shipments keep the economies viable. The logistic partnership supporting Toglor Nihon Ichiba, that is Bangkok's first Tsukushi-style wholesale fish market, allows shipments of fresh ingredients from Tsukiji market in Tokyo to Bangkok in under 10 hours. Seafood items are never frozen but packed in foam boxes with ice. That markets open to the chef and restaurant buyers who can purchase fish that was in Tokyo market less than 12 hours earlier. The phytosanitary inspection alone, the official health and export certification check, takes 2 to 4 hours at origin before the cargo is cleared. Then loading, flight time, custom clearance at destination, and then refrigerated last mile transport. The entire door to restaurant journey typically takes 24 to 36 hours. The demand pulling this supply chain forward has never been stronger or more geographically diverse. Japan's total food export hit a record high in the first half of 2025 with seafood, particularly scallops, bluefin tuna, and sea urchin surging in demand across US and Southeast Asia. Sushiro, who is Japan's largest conveyor belt sushi chain, captures the expansion mood perfectly. For the first time in its history, food and life companies plan to open more restaurants overseas than in Japan. Their international earnings are now led by Hong Kong, which is followed by Thailand, Singapore, and Taiwan. Meanwhile, seafood retailer 𝐼𝐸 partnered with the CP Food Global Solutions in Thailand, targeting 25 outlets across Makro and Lotus stores. But perhaps the most striking development is vertical integration. Sushiro's parent company has announced plans to launch large-scale land-based sea urchin farms in 2026 with output of several hundred tons annually, which will be entering production directly to guarantee quality and reduce supply chain risk. This is a fundamental shift from importing Japanese seafood to manufacturing it at destination through controlled aquaculture. No discussion of Japanese seafood logistics in 2026 is complete without understanding one seismic disruption. and that remarkable pivot it forced. In August 2023, China banned Japanese seafood imports following the Fukushima wastewater discharge. China had been Japan's largest seafood export market. Overnight it was gone. Yet, Japan's seafood export value still hit roughly $10 billion in 2024. The secret was rerouting. Scallops that had gone to China for shell removal processing before reaching the US were directed to Vietnam, Thailand, and a newly developed hub in Mexico. And by February 2024, in shell frozen scallop export for reprocessing had risen 31% per year over year. The lesson for logistic professionals is clear. Supply chains that appear fixed are more reconfigurable than people assume. If the trade relationship, certifications and cold chain infrastructure exist at alternative locations. Japan had those, and that pivot just took few months only. Cold chain redundancy and certification infrastructure are not just operational asset, they are geographical insurance. The Japanese fresh fish supply chain offers some of the sharpest lesson available anywhere in global logistics. First, temperature precision is a competitive product, and it is not just a compliance requirement. The gap between 0 degrees Celsius chilled and -1 degree super chilled is invisible to the human eye, but it extends fish shelf life by days. Every phase of Japan's cold chain, that is from production to transportation to delivery, is monitored to ensure that there are no temperature deviations. That monitoring is not regulatory box ticking. It is the actual product they are selling, that is assured freshness. Second, frequency beats volume. 3-day delivery cycles to restaurants beat weekly consolidated shipments, not because it is cheaper, but because the product quality differential more than justifies the cost premium. And premium restaurants price accordingly. Third, the first 30 minutes matter more than the next 30 hours. Ikijimi handling at catch, immediately icing, and correct pre-cooling before air loading determines the quality outcome more than any other single variable in the chain. Every logistic practitioner in temperature-sensitive goods should understand this principle. Quality is set at origin, not recovered in transit. Fourth, certification is market access. To maintain US sales after the China disruption, Japanese producers needed a HACCP certificate facilities registered with the FDA. Companies that had invested in those certifications ahead of time had options, and companies that hadn't were stuck. Fifth, vertical integration in the front end. The move by major sushi chains into aquaculture is not a food story. It's a supply chain security story. When you control the production, you control the freshness window, the certification status, and the consistency that global restaurant operations require. The supply chain that delivers sushi to the world is being redesigned. Recirculating aquaculture system, AI-based feeding, and low fish meal formulations are helping producers manage rising costs, warming waters, and disease risks in land-based facilities that can be built anywhere, potentially next to the restaurants they serve. The cold chain itself is decarbonizing. In August 2025, DHL supply chain initiated hydrogen fuel cell truck trials in Japan because the world's most quality-obsessed food logistic operation is now under equal pressure to be its most sustainable. At Toyosu, Pacific bluefin tuna quotas are expanding from 2025. Large tuna up 50%, smaller one up to 10%. The result of a rebuilding program that brought bluefin stock from 2% of historical level to 23% in under a decade. More sustainable supply chain means more volume for the global restaurants that depend on it. The sushi supply chain of 2030 will likely feature more aquaculture, more AI-controlled environment, and more local production closer to consumption market. But the underlying philosophy will remain identical. Freshness is non-negotiable, and the logistics system exists to deliver that promise regardless of what it takes. The next time a piece of tuna sashimi arrives in front of you at a restaurant in Singapore, Bangkok, or Hong Kong, consider what it took to get there. A fisherman in Aomori using a technique refined over centuries to preserve quality at the moment of catch. An auctioneer at Toyosu conducting a sale at 5:30 in the morning by hand signal. A cold chain specialist loading 20 kg styrofoam boxes into a refrigerated hold at 0 degrees. An air freight coordinator consolidating restaurant orders from 3 countries into a single flight. A custom broker clearing cytosanitary certificate at midnight. A refrigerated delivery driver navigating Bangkok traffic at dawn. And all of it timed to ensure that when the chef's knife descends, the fish is as close to the ocean as it can possibly be. Japan's seafood export operation hit a $10 billion in 2024. Not because of marketing, not because of subsidies, but because an entire nation decided that freshness was worth engineering at an industrial scale. That is a lesson for every logistic professional. The most valuable supply chain are not the fastest or the cheapest or the most automated. They are the one built around an uncompromising commitment to a single quality standard and then engineered obsessively at every step of the chain to protect it. Itadakimasu.